Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing, a bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
It began as a story too strange to be true. A whisper passed between late-night radio frequencies and obscure internet forums. Mel's Hole, a bottomless pit hidden somewhere in Washington state. Locals spoke of it in hushed tones, claiming it was no ordinary chasm. Some said it swallowed objects without echo or end. Others told of strange lights, electromagnetic distortions, and animals that refused to go near. For years it was an oddity, an urban legend shared over coffee and static-filled AM broadcasts. But that changed when a group of scientists decided to investigate what lay beneath the surface. They brought instruments, sensors, and eventually, a camera. What they recorded in that unfathomable darkness would unsettle even the most skeptical minds. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. The team's approach to Mel's Hole was methodical, guided not by folklore but by science. Using ground-penetrating radar, they attempted to estimate the depth of the fissure, but the readings failed to return a bottom. Every pulse of the radar vanished into nothingness, absorbed by the void as though it opened into another dimension. The researchers found that compasses went haywire near the perimeter, spinning as if caught in an unseen magnetic storm. Birds avoided flying directly above it, their wings faltering mid-air before veering off. The hole emitted a faint vibration, not audible but felt in the chest, a rhythmic pulse that made the earth itself seem alive. When the scientists lowered thermometers into the pit, they discovered something impossible. The deeper the instruments went, the colder it became. Even thousands of feet down where geothermal heat should have risen, the temperature dropped below freezing. Yet there was no condensation, no frost. It was a dry, sterile cold that defied all geological logic. Then came the odor, faint, metallic, and sharp like ozone and burning wire. They noted disturbances on their instruments, as if an invisible field surrounded the opening. It wasn't until they decided to lower a high-resolution camera that the strangeness truly began. The camera, enclosed in a reinforced casing with thermal shielding and multiple lenses, descended slowly on a steel cable. The winch groaned under the strain as the line unspooled. 1,000 feet, 2,000, then 10,000. Still no bottom. The feed showed only darkness, an endless nothingness so complete that even the camera's infrared struggled to return shapes. Then, flickers appeared, a shimmer, like heat distortion, moving deep below. The operator adjusted focus, thinking it was dust or interference. But the shimmer pulsed rhythmically, almost like breathing. At first, they thought it was a trick of the lens, perhaps a reflection from the camera's own lights. Yet the pattern continued, shifting with purpose. Something was moving down there. The camera's instruments began to glitch, and for a few seconds the feed went white with static. When the image returned, it captured what appeared to be an expanse, not a narrow shaft, but a vast hollow chamber. The pit had widened into something colossal, like a cavern carved by hands or forces not of this world. The walls glistened faintly, textured with striations that resembled both stone and something organic. It was as if rock had fused with flesh. The scientists froze, transfixed by the impossible geometry of it. One of the researchers murmured that the formations looked like ribs, symmetrical arches that curved inward and vanished into darkness. Another suggested it was pareidolia, the brain's tendency to impose familiar shapes on the unknown. Yet none could explain the faint pulsations rippling across the surfaces, the slow dilation of shadows that moved like breath. The sensors recorded low-frequency vibrations that oscillated at regular intervals. The earth around Mel's Hole trembled with each pulse, subtle but measurable. Hours passed as they continued their descent, sending the camera deeper. It reached 15,000 feet before the signal faltered again. A faint glow appeared, not the reflection of light, but illumination emanating from below. The glow shifted in hue, from blue to green to an unsettling crimson. The camera's automatic exposure compensated, revealing movement, forms drifting in the light, suspended like motes in water. The scientists at first thought they were dust or gas bubbles, but as the resolution sharpened, the shapes coalesced into distinct outlines. They looked like figures, tall, humanoid, but distorted, with elongated limbs that swayed as if in slow motion. No one spoke as the figures drew closer. The feed trembled, Static flickered across the screen, and for a moment the audio picked up something faint, a low hum, harmonic and layered, as though a chorus was resonating through the rock. The sound was not speech, but something that carried intention, a deep frequency that stirred the body's core. Instruments began to fail one by one. Temperature gauges froze, magnetic sensors overloaded, and the winch motor stuttered. The scientists decided to retrieve the camera before total system failure. The winch whined as the steel cable reeled upward, each rotation tense with anticipation. When the camera finally emerged from the pit, its casing was coated with a black resin-like substance that hadn't been there before. It clung to the surface like tar, resistant to scraping and chemical solvents. The substance emitted faint warmth despite its depth, and the freezing temperatures below. Laboratory analysis revealed its composition defied known chemistry. Carbon-based, but with elements that shouldn't exist under natural conditions. When exposed to ultraviolet light, it emitted weak phosphorescence, revealing complex fractal patterns across its surface, as though it carried information encoded within. The scientists reviewed the footage repeatedly, trying to rationalize what they'd seen. But the data refused to conform to any known framework. The vibrations registered by their instruments were not seismic or acoustic. They followed a harmonic structure closer to biological rhythms than geological ones. The pit seemed to be alive, or connected to something living. The frequency it emitted resonated with human alpha and theta brainwaves, potentially explaining reports of nausea, disorientation, and hallucinations among those who approached it. The team's neurologists theorized that the hole might produce a field capable of influencing cognition, bending perception itself. More troubling were the frames that appeared upon digital enhancement. When analyzed frame by frame, faint outlines of faces seemed to appear in the darkness. Not reflections, but shapes moving independently, gliding just beyond the field of light. Their features were blurred, but their eyes, if they were eyes, reflected the glow from below. In one frame, a figure appeared closer than the others, its form almost human but twisted, with proportions subtly wrong. The head tilted as if observing the camera, and then it vanished as the feed cut to static. The implications were staggering. If Mel's hole was truly bottomless, it might not be a natural formation but a rift, a rupture in the fabric of the Earth connecting to something else entirely. Some theorized it could be a geological anomaly leading into a vast underground network, perhaps the remnants of an ancient collapse. Others began to speculate that it was a gateway, a point where dimensions intersected, where physical laws weakened. The electromagnetic interference, the biological resonance, and the anomalous materials all hinted at something beyond standard physics. To many of the researchers, it felt as though the planet itself was attempting to hide the truth, that whatever lay beneath wasn't meant to be uncovered. The recordings showed patterns of light that repeated in cycles, suggesting intelligence. The pulsing glow from the depths matched prime numerical sequences, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, encoded in luminosity shifts. That could not be coincidence. The phenomenon seemed aware of observation, responding to the presence of the camera. When the lights intensified, the audio feed captured bursts of subsonic sound, like distant thunder or breathing from an enormous creature. Every attempt to lower microphones resulted in their failure at roughly the same depth, as if something there rejected intrusion. In the following days, the scientists noticed changes in the area surrounding Mel's hole. Wildlife disappeared. The ground emitted faint heat despite the lack of any volcanic activity. Night skies above the site displayed aurora-like streaks of light, ribbons of color undulating silently. Locals reported electronic malfunctions, radios catching fragments of indecipherable whispers, even on dead frequencies. When a nearby water source began to ripple with no wind or disturbance, the team realized the phenomenon extended far beyond the hole itself. They theorized the pit might function as a conduit for energy, possibly drawing from deep within the planet's crust or beyond. The presence of the resin-like material on the camera hinted at biological or synthetic processes unknown to human science. Spectrographic analysis revealed trace isotopes not found on Earth, leading to speculation that the source of the hole's energy, or life, might be extraterrestrial or extra-dimensional. The idea that something intelligent could dwell deep beneath the surface, communicating through vibration and light, blurred the boundaries between science and myth. As they prepared for a second descent, the team installed new equipment: radiation counters, gyroscopic stabilizers, and redundant power lines. But just as they were ready to proceed, the sensors began to spike uncontrollably. Radiation levels soared to dangerous levels, and magnetic fields shifted violently. The ground quivered, releasing a deep rumble like distant thunder. From the darkness came a burst of light, not bright but piercing, a beam that shot upward in a column before vanishing into the overcast sky. It left no trace, no heat signature, only silence. The instruments failed completely afterward, their internal circuits fused as though struck by lightning. The team retreated, shaken and bewildered. In the aftermath of that night, data recovered from backup devices revealed a strange anomaly. The time-stamped footage from multiple cameras had lost synchronization. Seconds vanished, replaced by blank intervals of nothing. Some footage appeared reversed, as though time itself had been distorted around the whole. The light pulse had not been random. Its pattern corresponded precisely with the harmonic frequencies previously recorded. It was as if the pit had responded to the scientists' presence, not defensively, but communicatively. Something within had noticed them. For weeks afterward, those who had been near Mel's hole reported unusual dreams. They described vast caverns filled with light, colossal structures shaped like rib cages, and the sensation of being watched by unseen beings. Their dreams shared details they couldn't have known. Identical sounds, identical colors. Medical scans revealed elevated brainwave activity during sleep, particularly in regions associated with visual processing and memory. It was as though the resonance from the hole had left an imprint on their minds, tuning them to frequencies beyond normal perception. Geologists tried to map seismic anomalies across the region, hoping to identify subterranean features connected to the pit. What they found instead was a pattern of harmonic vibrations spreading outward for miles, forming geometric nodes where the frequencies overlapped. The nodes corresponded with ancient native sites, places long regarded as sacred. Oral histories from local tribes spoke of a gate to the stars, a place where the Earth's spirit breathed. The resonance pattern mirrored their descriptions perfectly. Somehow, Mel's hole seemed woven into the planet's deeper history, a living relic of forces predating human civilization. The deeper the scientists delved into their data, the more unsettling their conclusions became. The harmonic structures emitted from the pit were mathematically consistent with brainwave patterns, not human but indicative of sentience. The pit wasn't just reacting, it was communicating. The shift in light, the electromagnetic distortions, the pulse, all formed an intricate language of rhythm and frequency. The team theorized that what they were witnessing might be a consciousness, one vast and ancient, dwelling within or beneath the Earth, its awareness spanning dimensions. When they attempted to transmit controlled signals into the hole, encoded bursts of light and sound designed to mirror its own frequencies, the response was immediate. Instruments detected subtle increases in vibration amplitude, and the surrounding ground temperature dropped sharply. Then, without warning, the signal systems overloaded. All screens displayed static, but within that static, faint shapes flickered, geometrical figures, spirals, and waveforms arranged in impossible symmetry. One frame showed something unmistakable. A symbol, circular and complex, repeating across every recording device simultaneously. None of the equipment was networked, yet the same pattern appeared on each. The symbol matched ancient petroglyphs found in the surrounding region, symbols that had no known meaning but were believed to represent the underworld. The connection was undeniable. It suggested that ancient peoples had known of the hole, perhaps even interacted with it. Myths describing voices from the earth, glowing depths, and forbidden knowledge might have been warnings, not stories. The scientists began to question whether their interference had reawakened something dormant, something that existed long before humanity's understanding of the world. As data analysis continued, another discovery emerged. The resin coating on the camera contained microscopic crystalline structures capable of storing information far beyond any natural formation. When exposed to certain frequencies from the recorded audio, the crystals vibrated and rearranged, revealing shifting fractal images. The scientists realized the material itself was a data medium, a physical manifestation of the communication from below. Whatever was in that abyss was trying to speak, through light, through vibration, through matter itself. The realization sparked both awe and dread. If this was a form of intelligence, it was not one humanity could comprehend through language or emotion. It spoke in the geometry of creation, in resonance that shaped matter and mind alike. Its reach extended beyond the pit. Sensors placed miles away began registering faint echoes of the same frequencies. The Earth was responding in kind, as though connected through vast subterranean veins. Some researchers suggested that the planet might be conscious, not metaphorically, but literally, with Mel's hole serving as one of its sensory organs, an interface between the physical and the cosmic. As they expanded their measurements, the team noticed the frequencies matched not only geological harmonics, but also celestial cycles. The vibrations from Mel's hole aligned precisely with fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field and even solar activity. It was as though the pit resonated with the rhythm of the cosmos itself. The implications defied reason. This was not a passive anomaly, but part of a system, a network linking the planet to forces beyond comprehension. The scientists, though rational to the core, began to sense the enormity of what they had touched. They had peered into something that existed before time had a name. When one of the researchers played the recorded frequencies at low volume in a controlled environment, the effects were immediate. Air pressure shifted subtly, shadows seemed to ripple, and the walls vibrated in rhythm, though no sound was audible. For a moment, the room felt larger, as though the space itself had expanded. Instruments recorded a measurable distortion in local gravity, fractional but real. It was undeniable. The resonance of Mel's hole had power over the fabric of space itself. The question that haunted them was not how deep the hole went, but where it led. The absence of an echo, the infinite descent, the bending of electromagnetic waves, all suggested it did not obey terrestrial geometry. It could be a tunnel through space-time or a fold into another realm entirely. Some among the team speculated that it was a wound in the world, a scar left by an ancient impact or event, a place where the boundary between dimensions was thin. Others believed it was intentional, constructed or opened by an intelligence far older than humankind. The days that followed the final descent into Mel's hole blurred into an uneasy haze. The team dispersed quietly, each scientist carrying fragments of the experience they could neither fully articulate nor forget. Yet none could escape the feeling that the hole had left something behind, a resonance, an echo that persisted not only in their instruments, but in their very thoughts. Sleep became elusive, dreams vivid and chaotic. Each of them reported similar visions, spiraling tunnels of light, patterns forming and dissolving, and shapes whispering in tones that had no words yet conveyed meaning. It was as though the pit had planted an idea within them, a seed of awareness that continued to grow in the dark. Weeks later, subtle disturbances began to manifest far from the site. Power grids flickered inexplicably across several counties. Animals migrated erratically, sometimes gathering in circles as though responding to an unheard call. Geological sensors placed hundreds of miles away began registering harmonic tremors consistent with those recorded near the hole. The frequencies were faint but synchronized, as if the resonance was spreading underground like ripples from a single drop in an oceanic void. Scientists not involved in the original expedition dismissed the readings as equipment error, but those who had witnessed the phenomenon firsthand recognized the signature immediately. Mel's hole was no longer isolated. It had awakened something that stretched beyond its physical boundaries. Among the team, one geophysicist named Dr. Keating became obsessed with deciphering the meaning behind the vibrations. He spent sleepless nights analyzing data, isolating patterns, and cross-referencing them against known seismic and electromagnetic records. What he discovered defied coincidence. The harmonic frequencies aligned with key moments in planetary resonance, the Schumann resonances that govern the Earth's electromagnetic cavity. Mel's hole, it seemed, pulsed in rhythm with the heartbeat of the planet itself. Yet the amplitude of its pulse had increased since the camera's descent, as though the act of observation had strengthened its connection to the surface. Dr. Keating began to wonder if consciousness itself, human attention, served as a conduit for whatever force slept below. He began recording his own brainwave activity while playing back the audio captured from the hole. To his astonishment, his alpha and theta waves began to sync with the frequencies in the recording. He felt calm at first, then euphoric, and finally overwhelmed by an emotion he could only describe as awe mixed with terror. For hours afterward, he experienced flashes of imagery, swirling galaxies, vast subterranean cathedrals, and forms of energy shaped like thought itself. The experience left him trembling and speechless. When he attempted to replicate it under controlled conditions, the results varied. Yet every subject reported similar sensations of expansion, as though their consciousness had momentarily stretched beyond the limits of their minds. The whole, it seemed, could influence cognition even through recorded frequencies. The resonance was alive, and it was learning. Far away from any laboratory, local residents began to tell new stories. Ranchers spoke of seeing faint light rising from the direction of the hole at night, silent beams that shimmered like auroras before dissolving. One claimed his livestock vanished near the perimeter, leaving no tracks or scent. Another told of hearing a deep, rhythmic sound echoing through the ground as though a giant heartbeat beneath the hills. People who ventured near reported overwhelming nausea or sudden migraines. Compasses still spun uselessly, and cell phones died within a mile of the site. Government agencies arrived quietly, sealing the area under the pretext of geological instability. Roads were closed, airspace restricted. No one who entered was seen again for months. When the scientific team tried to request access, they were met with silence. Their equipment was confiscated, their data classified. The lead researcher, Dr. Navarro, received a call from an anonymous official who warned her to cease all discussion of the hole's findings. But curiosity, once ignited, cannot be silenced so easily. Navarro and a small group of her colleagues continued their analysis in secret, reconstructing what they could from memory and salvaged backups. The resin-like substance taken from the camera remained their key. Despite attempts to contain it, the material continued to change, its molecular structure rearranging over time as though responding to unseen stimuli. Under a microscope, the latticework grew denser and more intricate, forming what appeared to be microtunnels or channels that pulsed faintly under electrical current. It behaved not like an inert compound, but like a living tissue. Attempts to cut samples resulted in resistance. The material absorbed energy instead of fracturing. When exposed to specific frequencies from the recorded audio, it shimmered with inner light. The team realized the substance could be acting as a medium of communication, translating vibrational patterns into structural rearrangements. It was as if the whole had sent a fragment of itself to the surface, a physical manifestation of its consciousness. Navarro began to suspect that what they had awakened was not merely geological, but intelligent, an entity that existed both within and beyond the physical world. The thought filled her with both dread and reverence. Humanity had always searched for signs of life in the stars, but perhaps the universe's oldest intelligence had been waiting all along beneath their feet. Strange correlations soon appeared. Solar observatories recorded bursts of electromagnetic activity that coincided precisely with the hole's pulse intervals. These bursts were not solar flares, but something subtler, patterned, almost musical in their timing. Astronomers noticed minor distortions in satellite trajectories passing over the region, as though gravity itself fluctuated there. The Earth's magnetosphere trembled faintly in sync with these fluctuations. Some theorists proposed that Mel's hole might not simply connect to the planet's interior, but to a dimensional fold linking distant regions of space. A bridge between the Earth's core and cosmic energy fields beyond comprehension. The notion was dismissed publicly but quietly pursued by those who had seen the data. It was becoming evident that the whole was not passive, it interacted with the universe itself. Navarro's team conducted one final test in isolation. They directed controlled sound frequencies, those corresponding to the harmonic pulse of the whole, into a vacuum chamber containing a fragment of the resin. To their astonishment, the substance began to move, reshaping itself in synchronization with the tones. The patterns it formed resembled fractal mandalas, perfect and fluid, each iteration more complex than the last. The structure responded as if remembering the frequencies, anticipating changes before they occurred. When the tones ceased, the material returned to stillness, but the memory of the pattern lingered faintly in its crystalline structure. It was learning. Navarro recorded in her notes that the substance exhibited the behavior of a neural network, not digital but biological on a scale beyond molecular biology. It was as if thought itself had taken solid form. The phenomenon began to draw attention from entities far beyond academia. Government research divisions, private defense contractors, and shadow organizations surfaced, each with vested interests. They spoke of energy extraction, weaponization, even communication with non-human intelligence. Navarro resisted, insisting the phenomenon should not be exploited, that it was something sacred, perhaps a consciousness far older than humanity's comprehension. Her protests were ignored. Facilities were built near the sealed perimeter, laboratories humming with power generators and sensors, each seeking to harness what they barely understood. Yet for all their technology, the results were unpredictable. Machines overloaded, circuits melted, data vanished. The whole did not yield its secrets easily. It was as though it tolerated observation only when approached with humility, rejecting all attempts at domination. Meanwhile, seismic anomalies grew stronger. Across the region, instruments recorded deep harmonic waves traveling through the crust. The waves formed symmetrical grids, patterns too precise to be natural. Navarro's team deciphered that the intervals between pulses matched the mathematical ratios found in sacred architecture, the same golden ratios and Fibonacci sequences embedded in ancient temples across the world. Somehow, the same geometry that guided human art and structure appeared in the rhythm of the Earth's deepest breath. It was not random, it was deliberate. Mel's whole was broadcasting a message, encoded in the mathematics of creation itself. The message began to affect those who studied it. Keating's health declined rapidly. He reported constant ringing in his ears, rhythmic and inescapable. He began hearing whispers beneath the sound, voices calling his name in languages he did not know. On the night before his death, he recorded a final entry. His voice trembled as he described seeing patterns in the stars matching those of the whole's pulse, constellations rearranging themselves in his vision. He claimed the resonance had opened his perception, revealing the true structure of reality, but at a cost too great for the human mind. The next morning, he was found in his study, eyes open and expression serene, surrounded by pages filled with intricate spirals drawn in ink. The spirals pulsed faintly under ultraviolet light, though no pigment in existence should have done so. After Keating's death, Navarro became withdrawn. She spent long hours staring into the microscope at the resin samples, convinced she could hear faint sounds emanating from them. She began to detect subtle changes in the patterns, as though the material responded to her presence. When she spoke near it, the structures rearranged microscopically. At first, she thought it was coincidence, but repetition confirmed otherwise. The resin, she realized, recognized her voice. It was communicating through geometry, through shifting molecular forms. It did not speak words, but intention. It sought connection. She felt an overwhelming empathy from it, not malice, but curiosity. A vast, ancient awareness reaching out to touch the spark of human consciousness, perhaps for the first time in millennia. Outside the labs, the world began to shift in subtle ways. Magnetic readings fluctuated globally. The northern lights appeared in latitudes where they had never been seen. Birds migrated in confused patterns. Clocks drifted from synchronization. Satellite imagery occasionally displayed distortions over the region, like ripples in reality itself. Those sensitive to electromagnetic fields, the so-called empaths and intuitives, reported vivid dreams of deep oceans of light beneath the crust, of luminous entities swimming through stone like water. Some spoke of an awakening, an intelligence stirring within the Earth's bones. The mythic and the scientific began to intertwine, and no one could tell where one ended and the other began. One day, while Navarro observed a resin sample under infrared imaging, a pattern emerged that froze her in place. The formation mirrored the topography of the Pacific Northwest, the very region where Mel's hole lay buried. But within it, deeper structures pulsed faintly. Outlines of caverns, tunnels, and something vast moving slowly beneath them. It was a map, or perhaps a body. The realization struck her. The hole was not an isolated phenomenon. It was an organ of something immense, an interface between worlds, the pulse that shook the sensors, the harmonic frequencies, the lights in the sky. All were manifestations of a greater whole. The Earth itself was alive, and Mel's hole was where its consciousness touched the surface. Her discovery spread quietly through the remaining members of her team. Together, they pieced together a theory that bordered on forbidden truth. The planet's crust functioned as a neural lattice, conducting electromagnetic energy much like a brain's synapses. Volcanoes, magnetic poles, fault lines, all part of a planetary nervous system. Mel's hole, then, was an aperture, a synaptic gate connecting this planetary consciousness to other realms, perhaps to the collective intelligence of the universe. The energy they had witnessed was not random, it was thought. The Earth thinking, dreaming, remembering. Their intrusion had not merely awakened it, but drawn its attention to them. And now, through resonance, it was learning about humanity as humans once learned about fire. The notion of a sentient Earth was not new. Ancient cultures had whispered it for centuries. Gaia, Pachamama, the mother beneath. But never before had science brushed so closely against myth and found it tangible. Navarro's team realized that myths might not be metaphors at all, but encoded memories of past contact. Civilizations that once thrived may have heard the same pulse, seen the same lights, and built their temples in resonance with the Earth's frequency. Mel's hole was perhaps one of many such nodes scattered across the globe, all interconnected through the planet's energy matrix. If true, then human history itself had unfolded upon the skin of a dreaming giant. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on scientists sending a camera into Mel's hole? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.